And there were times I went to bed thinking, scary thoughts that it would be better for everyone if I never woke up or if I was never born. It was terrifying. And during one particularly difficult day, I made a promise that if I could somehow overcome what I was going through, I would just do whatever part I could do to help others to do the same. And how do you know if you're having burnout?
Hi, Dr. Oma. Thank you so much again for joining me at PS Younger Self.
Well, thank you for having me, Chris. I'm so excited to be here.
Just to introduce you, Dr. Oma is a board certified dermatologist and a clinical professor of dermatology and director of multicultural dermatology and hair loss disorders at University of California at Davis. And she's also a mother of beautiful three children. And she recently gave a powerful TEDx talk that I watched a few times when I came across it about how she experienced burnout, but was able to turn it around into her breakthrough experience. And now she's really passionate about raising awareness about burnout amongst mothers specifically. So I would love to get into this conversation about what it is, how can we identify the signs, because so many of us seem to be experiencing it, and how we can really, reset ourselves for maybe breakthrough experiences as well.
Absolutely. Millions of people are struggling with burnout, and this problem is pervasive. And there are several body systems and psychological processes that are affected in burnout, and they can be broken down into three categories: physical and emotional exhaustion, cynicism and detachment, and signs of ineffectiveness or lack of accomplishment. And before we kind of go into that deeper, I think kind of to better understand the paradox of my own experience with burnout, we need to take a look back to where I came from. I grew up in an immigrant family from very humble beginnings. We couldn't afford to go on vacations or wear designer clothing, and my parents are from a very small village in West Africa, and they immigrated to the U.S. 40 years ago to start a family and give their children a chance to succeed. And even from a very small age, my parents instilled this hope in my siblings that if we could just attain career success by becoming a doctor, for example, if we could attain economic success, then we would have it made. So I had this expectation that happiness and fulfillment were linked to career success and financial stability. And so
Mm.
fast forward a couple decades to 2020, I had achieved a lot of my goals. I achieved my dream of becoming a doctor, had a loving, handsome husband, I had two beautiful children, I had a successful career and recognition in the community. And yet I found myself feeling emotionally detached from my own life. And it was really that detachment that was a marker for that period in my life. And at first, I ignored it, just thinking I should think positive and focus on gratitude for my blessings. And however, that subtle emotional disconnection evolved into this chronic emotional exhaustion and further deteriorated into this constant sense that nothing I did mattered, that I was going in circles in my life, collecting accomplishments, but not doing anything meaningful. And there were times I went to bed thinking, scary thoughts that it would be better for everyone if I never woke up or if I was never born. It was terrifying. And during one particularly difficult day, I made a promise that if I could somehow overcome what I was going through, I would just do whatever part I could do to help others to do the same. And and so that kind of circles back to the question of how do you know if you're having burnout? I experienced that. I experienced the physical and emotional exhaustion just day in and day out, feeling like I couldn't really engage with people in a normal way. I felt very detached. Psychologists will break it down into chronic fatigue, insomnia, forgetfulness. Sometimes you can even start getting sick more frequently because you're immunosuppressed just from being so depleted. You can have physical symptoms such as chest pain or palpitations. You can have anxiety, depression. So these are all medical symptoms. And if anyone is experiencing that, they absolutely need to get help. Talk to your primary care doctor. And
Mhm.
then the next side of what I was experiencing is the cynicism and the detachment. There was just this loss of enjoyment. It was almost like everything just was like the initial stages could be feeling like, oh, the glass is half empty, but then you get to the point where it's almost like everything is just so negative. You feel isolated. And then when it comes to how you view your own worth and your own contribution, one of the signs of burnout is the signs of ineffectiveness or lack of accomplishments. No matter what you're actually accomplishing, you just feel like what you're doing, it doesn't actually matter. You're not really fulfilling any real purpose. You're going in circles. There's this apathy, there's this hopelessness. And then you can actually end up being less productive and feeling like all of your work is piling up on top of you and you're not able to get ahead of things. So this can be very severe. It can start out very insidious and then it can progress and become debilitating.
Mhm. No, that is very scary when it gets to that state of debilitating. And you said, and I remember hearing this on your TED talk, and I thought, wow, that is such a scary thought when you said there was a time when you thought that you'd be better off if you didn't wake up, something along those lines. And to get to that point sounds extremely scary and, to your point, debilitating. But if we can back up a little bit, because you shared so much with us. And you said that one of the core symptom signs is detachment. What
Mhm.
is it seems very obvious what that means, but if you can explain to us like what the experience of that, were you completely just felt like you weren't present with your children, your
Mhm.
family? Like, what does that detachment look like and
Hmm.
manifest with other people around you or around other people?
All right, that's a wonderful question. So I'll give you kind of the psychologist answer and then I'll talk about my own
Yeah.
experience. So, detachment is a general sense of feeling disconnected from the people around you and your environment. It can take the form of behaviors where you're just not enjoying things normally. You can feel like you're removed, like you are emotionally and physically removed from your job and other responsibilities. You just might just not feel interested, not being interested in responding to emails, for example, or participating in activities in your neighborhood or with your family. So in terms of my own experience, it was almost like I was almost having an out of body experience. I just remember kind of sitting with my family, feeding them, and just feeling like a robot, almost feeling like I'm just here and this is a really nice family and these kids are really cute and I'm
Really?
just kind of going through the motions and this should be great. It was very, very strange. It was,
Wow.
for me, it was strange. It was almost like I was just not really there, like I was watching myself going through the motions,
Wow.
kind of looking and maybe seeming normal to the people around me, but just not being engaged.
Yeah.
Like I might go to work and see and interact with people normally, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna put on my friendly face now, and like almost like just not being um, emotionally invested in anything. It was a
Wow.
scary place to be. Yeah.
Wow. Did your children and your husband and your faculty, did anyone else notice?
The sad thing about burnout is that when it occurs in people who are otherwise extremely high functioning
Yeah.
individuals, they're able, generally, until it gets really severe, they're able to mask it and just continue doing the things that they normally do. Um, But of course, when it becomes truly debilitating, then it might start looking like the performance is going down or things are not being taken care of in time. But to your question, did anyone notice? Maybe my husband noticed I might have been slightly moody, maybe.
Mhm.
But it wasn't until I actually shared with him what I was feeling because I didn't quite diagnose myself immediately. It took
Yeah.
a while for me to put it together. But it wasn't until I shared with him my experience that he realized there's a real problem, and he's, like a lot of men, he's a fixer. He wants to fix it, and he's like, well, just do this, or maybe take a day off, and
Mm,
and like it's hard to provide the right support for someone who's experiencing these things unless you're actually trained in burnouts,
yeah.
and so did his best to support me, and I appreciate that. He's my best friend, partner for life, did his best, but really, it really was something that was hard to convey and hard to support at the time that it was happening.
Mm. So, how long do you think you experienced it before you said you realized you were aware enough to bring it up to your husband? And then we'll get to kind of your breakthrough moment and the systems and things that helped you recover. But how
Mhm.
long did you go through this before you realized maybe I am experiencing?
Hmm. It was a few months, actually. Yeah. So it almost became something that I thought, well, I have two very small children. I'm working a lot. This is just what life is like for a youngish working mother, especially like a physician mother. Like I guess this is what life is like. People talk about how they just kind of go through life and they're just getting through, and so I initially thought maybe I should accept it. Or maybe it'll just pass on its own when my kids get older, or things, other things maybe change. But it was definitely something that was chronic in the sense that it was lasting for months. And it started before COVID-19 became a big thing. So 2020 is, kind of the year that I went through that experience, but it was going on like I kind of went into 2020 with these symptoms. And then, of course, with COVID, exploding, becoming a huge worldwide emergency, then that further exacerbated that experience until I was able to get a grasp on it and make steps to start turning things around.
Yeah. No, and I read that, I mean, the people experiencing burnout post the pandemic has just skyrocketed globally.
Hmm.
And I think and I read the World Health Organization, actually in 2019, so this was before, but
Hmm.
had at that time like officially included like burnout as what is it, an occupational syndrome. So it's not
Correct.
a mental illness or anything, but definitely like a something that is pervasive to your point, and so many people are experiencing it and affecting their well-being. And again, and I think so important and really courageous and important for women like you, people like you, to share their personal experience. And hopefully, I'm going to get to more specifically mothers here, because I know that is something that is very important to you, raising awareness about mothers. But people can see and maybe relate and identify, like, if this is something that they are going through, what are, again, those signs that you identified, and what kind of steps they can take now to further, impact and create any damage. But you cited on your TED Talk that nearly 10 million just in the US working mothers suffer from burnout and in silence. And you were one of them until you spoke up. Why do you think, number one, like, do you think working mothers compared to other cohorts like struggle more?
I absolutely do, actually, and a potential source of the disproportionate burnout in
Mm,
women can be the magnitude and intensity of overlapping and often conflicting identities, which exist simultaneously in the mind of a woman. Women not only need to fight harder to gain respect and prove themselves in the workplace due to gender bias, but we often need to manage a busy household, coordinating the calendars, activities, and commitment of family members with sometimes little or no support. And we're expected to compete with men in the workplace for status and promotions while caring for children, partners, and sometimes also parents at home. And we're expected to completely disconnect from work after an intense workday and be mentally present at home, cooking meals, interacting with and loving their families with a smile. And our responsibilities and roles are always with us, pulling us, pushing us, while we're being told we need to be mindful and focus on one thing at a time to excel. And women need help. We need help from our partners. We need support in the workplace. We need social interaction and connectedness. We need space to disconnect and find ourselves and our own identities in a world that demands so much from us. And
Yeah.
women are suffering in silence, and speaking from my own experience, when I went through burnout, there were times I felt ashamed and ungrateful for my life and blessings. Furthermore,
Mm.
considering how much my parents had sacrificed and given up to give my siblings and I opportunities they never had, I felt like people couldn't understand because in their eyes I had made it and I was succeeding and thriving.
Hmm. No, and I think that pressure, whether it's from our culture, to your earlier point that women, number one, like are working mothers or maybe working harder for a lot of the things that you just mentioned, but also culturally, like you said, when you shared your story about how you were, achieving all this status and meeting expectations for yourself, but also from your family, like that could be the hard balance where, to your point, like if I speak up and share that, I'm actually struggling or need help, it could be misconstrued or misinterpreted that, like, oh, does she not have it all together? And
Mhm.
especially like, I feel like this narrative has been so widespread, and there's definitely the positive side about it when it's like, the the narrative like we can have it all, women can have it all, of course we can, but I
Mhm.
feel the flip side of that coin could be if we speak up and share that we are either struggling or we need help, that she can't do it all. What do you think about that? Do you feel like maybe that has some play into some of the suffering and silence that working mothers go through?
Absolutely. When I went through my own experience, there was this sense that I somehow had to just suck it up and focus on positivity and power through to prove that I could handle my life and responsibilities with ease. And struggling with burnout can be stigmatized. And high
Yeah.
functioning professionals, they might view acknowledging signs of prolonged stress and burnout as a sign of weakness. And because of this, it might be hard for people to reach out and get the support they need. And someone's burned out, it's not your fault. It is not a personal failure or a sign of weakness. It's a symptom of the society we live in and your environment, and something that can be changed.
Absolutely. The symptom of and detach from that identity,
Hmm.
that you are anything less just because you may be struggling or overwhelmed with all the stressors in the environment. And that is exactly, and especially like I feel like in our modern society now, we you wear this badge of honor for being busy or how much more that
Hmm.
you can accomplish.
Hmm.
We look to people that, have everything as like, oh, if I could achieve that, but we don't know behind the scenes like what struggles like mentally, physically, that one person could go through just to keep up this facade because of
Hmm.
pressure just the society is putting on us, and how that is like something to look up to.
Absolutely. And I think that um, children of immigrant families or families that started off with humble beginnings, who have kind of broken through into what their community or their family views as success, or maybe they might be a first to do that, I think they
Mm,
face a unique burden because then people almost look to you like like almost like a, not a, almost like a savior, really. Like almost like, okay, well, this person made it. They're gonna encourage and encourage the community. They're going to reach back. They're going to pay it forward. They're going to help others along the way. And so there's almost this expectation that if you're a first, a first to make it, if your family was an immigrant family or came from humble beginnings, and they're looking to you with that expectation, and then you find yourself in this life where you've checked off these boxes to show that you have succeeded, but then you feel these symptoms and you're feeling overwhelmed and almost like, well, I can't tell them, like they're looking to me to reach back and help them, like they are looking to me as a sign of hope, a source of hope and encouragement. I'm supposed to be the strong one for them. I don't want to let them down or disappoint them or make
Yeah.
them think I'm not grateful for my life or that I cannot handle what I have achieved. And so I think there is an added mental burden for those types of individuals who kind of hold that role of being a first.
Wow. Yeah, and we live in such like an individualistic, especially in the Western world, in the US. And like,
Mhm,
when back in the day, like we had a village, a community that was there to support you. And it's okay to look to your big community.
mhm.
And now, to your point, there's all this pressure on one person, especially if you came from a certain background. But you helped us identify some of the symptoms, some of the signs that you experience, such as insomnia, chronic fatigue, cynicism, and detachment. What, so if someone is experiencing now these symptoms, these signs, obviously, they probably want, if for a prolonged period, probably want to get some medical opinion, right? Um,
Absolutely.
what after that, what are some steps, practices, system? You spoke about some of them in your TED talk that you implemented that really helped you not only recover, but prevent yourself from getting back into this like loop where
Mhm.
I feel like I don't think, looking back, I don't think I've experienced like burnout, but I've definitely been in times where I had psychosomatic symptoms where I was listening to my body that, okay, like this is a sign that I need to put some self-care and work on healing so that I don't get back into this vicious cycle. And I feel like that is something that if we don't maybe put systems in place, that could be something that people can be afraid that, because we can't control the environment, but we can control how we manage the stressors in the environment.
Absolutely. So you absolutely nailed it. For anyone experiencing any of these psychological and or physical symptoms, number one is to talk to your physician, talk to your primary care physician, psychologist, get a medical or psychological diagnosis and get the treatment that you need. That is absolutely necessary and required. And then to take a step further in terms of your own experiences and just kind of creating your own environment and trying to modulate your own environment. Mindset is so important. And one core philosophy that helped me to get a handle on my own stress management was
Mm,
recognizing that life should be more like an oscillating pendulum, swinging between giving and receiving, between nurturing others and being nurtured, between filling and emptying. And in my TED talk, I talked about the three steps that I use to overcome burnout. First, clear your plate, then fill your cup, and then pour it out. You
okay.
cannot fill your cup without being clear first. And I went into detail about how to clear your plates, clear your mind, clear your schedule, take time to sit in quietness. And then when it comes to pouring out into others, a lot of times people who are high functioning just keep pouring out and giving and giving and giving until you're pouring from an empty place. And you can't pour effectively without being filled up first. It's vital to take time to clear your life and clear your life enough to hear your spirit. There is a perfect divine spirit, I believe, that is trying to guide us. And from there, we can fill our cup. We all fill our cups differently based on our unique needs. For some, filling their cup might mean listening to inspirational audiobooks or reading scriptures. For others, it might mean taking a walk outside or spending time with friends. Psychologists call this replenishing your personal resource reservoir. So once we feel filled, we can more effectively use our gifts to pour out in service to our families, communities, and the world. And there are specific steps, very practical steps you can take in your workday. A lot of research is very centered on work related stress.
Yes,
And
yes.
there are steps that you can take during the workday. You don't need to take a sabbatical for 6 months to
Mm,
replenish yourself. Just during your regular routine days, there are things that we can do to give us a better sense of balance, perspective, and purpose. I do
mm,
believe in affirmations at the beginning of the day. Write them down on an index card, put them in your closet. This is not about giving yourself a pep talk. Your affirmations may or may not even have anything to do with your actual job. They could be a goal or dream that you would like to achieve someday. Write it on an index card and present tense and place it somewhere where you can see it every day. Read it aloud at least once a day. I like to do this before work. I strongly believe staying in touch with your dreams can help us and inspire us as we work towards them each day. And while you're at work, could be during your lunch break or other types of breaks, I think mindfulness can be very, very helpful. Meditation, try to disconnect during lunch. And then after work, I believe that's an opportunity to engage in a little physical activity that can really help you to reset, specifically outside. Something about being outdoors when you can really help you to mentally disconnect. And research studies have shown that physical activity can reduce the effects of work related stress that can lead to burnout. So for me, after a long day in clinic, I'll often take a 10 or 15-minute walk outside just to reconnect with myself after spending the day caring for others. And it can be absolutely transformative and restorative. Yeah, just enough to be outside, to think, to feel like a human being and not just a doer, doer, doer. So it could
yeah.
just be 10 or 15 minutes. And I have an emergency reset system as well,
Yeah,
because, you know, burnout is not just something that happens and then you get over it. Like it's always kind of trying to creep back. As long as you're in the
exactly.
state of giving and the state of serving the community, serving others, serving your family, it's always trying to creep back. It can be very subtle. You can start feeling a little bit detached or just start feeling a little bit cynical. And then it could start to affect your motivation. And so I have an emergency reset system. It's called the 6 S's. And
Oh,
I wanted to share that. Hopefully, it'll help someone.
yes, yes.
And and so the first S is sweat. We talked about working out. Could be very quick. The next S is steam, a long shower after a walk or workout. And the next S is slumber or sit. It could also mean just like take a rest, meditate, might not necessarily need to be a nap. And then the
Mhm.
next S is scream. So, scream not necessarily in the audible sense, but screaming in a sense of just getting out any difficult or negative feelings. A good friend of mine is a psychologist, and she suggested something called a brain dump, a journal entry where you take a piece of paper, you
Mhm.
write down anything that is bothering you or just difficult or just a negative, no matter what it is, just write it down, get it all out. Could even be like rage or anger, and then rip it up and throw it away. And that could be one way to really let out any negative feelings. Also, talking to a friend could be another way to scream or to a partner. The next
Ah,
S is spirit. So, spirit in the sense of a desire or dream. Like, think about what do you really want? And give a space for this spirit to speak to you, to guide you. And you could also keep like a dream or journal entry. And the last S is step. Take one immediate step towards that desire or dream and set that into motion. So you have sweat, steam, slumber, scream, spirit, and step.
Wow. I want to wait, touch on something a little bit more on that scream that was very interesting. Why does, so you said it doesn't have to be an audible scream, but like
Mhm.
journaling, the brain dump, as you said, of your negative feelings or what you're experiencing. Why is that so effective?
Well, what I have experienced is that when I try to keep things inside, and we all have negative emotions or things that bother us, and sometimes, if you try to keep things inside, what I've learned is that the tension it can build up and manifest in
Yeah.
unhealthy ways. So
Yeah.
it could end up being, like passive aggressive remarks, or it could end up being like rage or anger, or just an inability to connect with your higher self, your more positive self.
Mm,
And so from what I've learned, from psychologists, is that it's so important to release those negative feelings. And then that creates an environment for you to step into the higher side, your higher self, and get more in touch with that. And so I think it's really a very vital, for me, it's become a very vital part of my own routine when I need it to just do that brain dump journal entry, talk to a friend, talk to my husband, and let any negative or difficult emotions out.
no, that makes sense when you walk through it, and it kinda sounds like, detoxing, releasing, and to your point,
Mhm.
energetically, when you bottle up, any difficult feelings or, those symptoms and thoughts, like, it can just kind of maybe manifest, and maybe for me, that's probably why I was going through these psychosomatic symptoms early in the year, but very, very powerful. How do you use this system?
Right. So there are different ways to apply it, right? So you can use it in a like an emergency, like, oh, I feel like I'm getting very negative and it's almost like a crisis and wait for that. Or you can use this as a routine and you don't necessarily need to wait until things are that severe.
Yeah.
Maybe every week or two, you say, well, every couple weeks or every week, I'm going to have a babysitter for a Sunday afternoon, and I'm going to do my emergency resets. I'm going to go on a run or a walk outside, and then I'm going to take a long shower, and then I'll sit or take a nap or write in my journal. So there are different ways of implementing it. In terms of how I implement this,
Yeah.
it first kind of came to me during one of my reset afternoons, and because I noticed I was starting to naturally do this system. I
Mm,
would start to exercise, and then I'll take a long shower, and then I maybe if I have time I'll take a nap, and then I would wake up, and there's something about that combination of things. It opens you up to these higher thoughts, to ideas, to inspiration. If I wanted to plan like a presentation or a talk, or I was doing an interview, or just coming up with content, then I would find that that would set the stage for the release of for the receipt of these of like inspired thoughts or higher thoughts. I thought, well, maybe there's something to this system, maybe this is something that can be duplicated, and it really helped me to get in touch with my higher side. So I have started to incorporate this almost into a weekly routine, and then I would also take little pieces of it too. Like going through the whole process might take a couple hours, few hours, but you don't necessarily need to do all of them every time. You can just decide, oh, I'm just going to take a walk and take a long shower, or just take a walk and take a shower later, or just take a walk and then sit and meditate. So I think that this is something that really could be incorporated routinely, almost multiple times a week, if not having elements of it every day.
yeah, yeah. And like you said, because early on we all have different ways of pouring into our cup, as you said, right? So
Mhm.
maybe you find your own ways of creating a system, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, anything that helps you release as well as taking care of listening to what is going on in your body so that you create the space to heal, reset, and rejuvenate where you need to and not be completely overwhelmed. You made another really very interesting point. How the system helps you kind of connect with higher being, get a greater inspiration. And you said in your TEDx talk that aligning with our purpose can be the antidote to burnout. So I kind of feel like it's kind of touching on those things. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I found that to
Mhm.
be super interesting. So what do you mean by that? And how has aligning with your purpose prevented and ensured that don't go and don't experience another burnout?
Powerful question. We all have special abilities that can be used to serve others and improve our communities and the world. I do strongly believe that we kind of came into this world almost almost pre-programmed in some ways. There's a lot of plasticity and a lot of it based on decisions, environment, etc. But I do believe we've all come in kind of with special abilities that can be used, and if you are not expressing your gifts to others, you can feel like something is off, like your life is out of balance or somehow being wasted. And so that was part of my experience. And so I realized the power and the importance of clearing time to cultivate or discover a zone of genius. What is that thing that you could just do regardless of compensation, that you really get energy from, that you could do any day, that wakes you up, that you get out of bed really wanting to do. And everyone might not know this off the bat. It takes time to kind of clear space, to clear your mind, to get in touch with who that person is. And I believe we are creators. We have a creative nature as human beings. So, what is it in your spirit to create or develop? And what are you doing to set this in motion? We're not made to be oppressed or repressed or put in a box. If we feel repressed and boxed in, then I do believe this can increase our risk of burnout. So you need to find a way to let your spiritual creativity blossom. And psychological research has shown that dedication to a worthy cause or a belief in something greater than oneself, could even be religious or spiritual, it
Mm,
has a resilience enhancing effect. And and so this is something that has been shown to make us more resilient. And with greater resilience, we have a decreased risk of burnout.
That is really powerful, and I came across something like this from Vishen Lakhiani, the founder of Mind Valley. But he said, I don't know if he was quoting somebody else, but that the highest level of consciousness is when you realize that the life you live is not just about you, but
Hmm.
about the people that you will impact. And I feel like that is exactly what you're saying about, like, we all have this purpose and creative. And when you can see that, your life is more than just, what you experience for yourself, but the different people. And it can be your sphere of influence that is, just your family, your extended family, your employees. But we all have that power, right? And I feel like, to your point, like when we are just in this kind of default mode of going, 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 and always producing,
Hmm.
producing, producing, we might forget to realize that we are all making an impact, and we are all capable of influencing in a very positive way. And I love that when we can connect to realizing that we can have that impact, then maybe we can find that meaning again and not be so detached, get to the point of being completely burnt out and feeling like you don't have any meaning.
Absolutely. And this is not, this is not about, oh, everyone quit your job and live your
No.
passion. Like this is not the message here. The
Yeah.
message is that we all have innate abilities and we need to create a sacred space for those abilities, for that purpose, for that dream, the calling to grow. And it doesn't need to be overnight. As long as you're making just a little bit of progress on this, it could just be, for 30 minutes a day or even just 30 minutes a week. Whatever you can do to cultivate that higher self, that higher sense of purpose, I think that that could be one of the most powerful tools against burnout.
Oh, incredible. Now, have you enlisted your family, your children to help you prevent and support you and so that they can understand maybe when, you need time for yourself to reset and get these systems into place when let's say, like cuz in everyday life, I'm not a mother, Dr. Oma, but I have some very demanding like parents, even though like, they live 8,000 miles away from me where they need me for something.
Mhm.
And this goes back to your earlier point when we feel like, bad for disappointing them. But when you feel like the people that you love you the most need you and like right now, like Dr. Oma, my children need me right now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How
Mhm.
can you communicate to the people you love the most that you need to also create this preservation, this system, mom, the wife, like needs time to refuel, pour into her cup, clear her plate. How do you communicate that?
Yeah, my husband and I have talked about this at length,
Ah,
and we completely changed our approach to life since I had my experience with burnout. And we now approach life with the expectation that on this kind of oscillating pendulum that we're on, that we will have times where we're producing, we are engaging, we are giving, we're nurturing, we're busy, busy, busy. And then we will also have times where there is nothing on the schedule, where we get a babysitter for both of us, and we just take the afternoon to recover. And so we don't wait necessarily for a need, an imminent need to arise. We incorporate this into our weekly schedule. As for my extended family, they can observe. We have three children, five and under. We're both working full time. Like, they know that sometimes we just might not be available. And that kind of goes into setting expectations like, okay, I really want to help, but I just need some time. If you don't mind, if I can like call you back tomorrow or next week or sometime in the future. I need to take a day, and just going into life with that expectation, and
mm,
normalizing this. And I
yeah.
think that's really the big shift that we need to make. That what's normalized right now is go, go, go until there's a crisis. And then you stop, maybe you get some take a mental health day, or whatever you need to do. But we really need to normalize this oscillation of life, this shifting between giving and receiving, between nurturing and being nurtured, and make that the norm.
You are so right, and that is the key. And hopefully, conversations like this and your advocacy around being awareness, especially around working moms too, but everyone. The more we can have these conversations, we can hopefully get to changing that narrative, normalizing it. And I love what you said that now you created this conversation with your husband, so that like you put new systems into place with him, and so you approach this as a team as opposed
Mhm.
to I feel like when whether it be a mother or anyone suffering in silence, um and it can manifest whoever is in your life, and maybe they can take it personally and it can just spiral out of control. And I love that proactiveness about having that conversation with the people in your life and creating that like system, that routine, whatever, like you said, that allows you the freedom to oscillate because it is normal, like you said, and healthy and okay.
Absolutely, and it makes us better. It makes us more productive. It makes us be able to live a better life. It makes us more helpful. We can give more, we can be more, we can do more when we create this environment to be our best selves.
You're absolutely right. Let's just, make sure that is clear. It is to make us better and feel
Mhm.
good from the inside out, and yeah, and everyone else that we impact. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love to ask this final question to my incredible guest. If you can go back to your younger self, Dr. Oma,
Mm.
at any stage in her life. And it doesn't necessarily have to relate to this topic that we covered today,
Mhm.
but if you can just pass on one piece of wisdom to the little Oma at any age to remind her to live fully in the present and on her own terms, is there anything you'd like to pass on?
Wow, that is a powerful question. And, as a child, I just remember feeling different. Like I just didn't fit anywhere. And I thought it was a negative thing. And if I could go back, I would say you're unique for a reason.
Mhm.
There is something in you that is not meant to fit into any mold because you have a unique creative spirit. Lean into that inner wisdom and run with it.
I love it. You are unique for a reason. Yes, that is
Yes.
powerful. And just to sum up, I do want to express my gratitude for your passion in raising awareness around this so that hopefully, as you said, we can normalize it so that we can always show up as our best selves so that no working mom or anyone is suffering in silence. It's okay to ask help. It's okay to say that we are going through this and we need time to refuel, clear our plate, and seek the help and support, whether it's from our community, our family, or medical help if it gets to that point. So thank you for your passion. Thank you for your bringing awareness on this topic.
Thank you so much, Chris. This has been phenomenal. I really appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah. Before you leave, anybody would like to get in touch with you to watch your TED Talk, if they want even dermatology um, advice, anything, if they want to connect with you because you shared such a powerful message today, where can they easily find you?
Sure, just look me up on my website. It's omaabaimd.com. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. So reach out, say hello. I would love to hear from you.
Amazing. Thank you so much again, Dr. Oma.
Thank you so much, Chris.